Yana Vanaka and good morning, Fiji. Welcome to the brunch. I'm Jacquee Speight.
And I'm Lusi Banuve. Thank you for joining us. We hope you're having a wonderful day.
And we've got a great show lined up for you this morning. We'll be speaking to community advocate Vani Qanaika a little later on some of the challenges faced by sugarcane farmers.
We'll also speak to Fijian social media influencer Mels Levula on her journey from avid cooking vlogger to aspiring caterer.
I'm excited for that one.
Yes.
Really excited because I love her videos. It feels like it's an all-women show today. But first, let's take a look at the headlines this morning.
Jacquee, on the MyTV website, George Speight says Itauke advocacy should not be labeled racist.
And on the front page of the Fiji Times, Speight breaks silence. Reconciliation must begin with accountability. And Fiji Sun, Lusi?
And in the Fiji Sun, Speight calls for the removal of immunity. Yeah, that's what the three papers have for us, and also what we have
Big
on
news
MyTV.
Right across. Busy day yesterday. It's not just the front page. You open it up, it's on page 2, page 3. So it was really big stories for everyone yesterday.
Yes, definitely, because I think his submission at the CRC was what everyone was looking forward to, especially the mainstream media. So that's why this is trending this morning.
And he also got to speak with the media afterwards.
Yes.
And I watched the video because I hadn't been following it, but I watched the video and he spoke in Itauke the whole time. So
there you go.
Well, these comments from George Speight, covered by all the major newsrooms, were from his submission at the Constitution Review Commission yesterday.
Amongst other things, Speight has joined calls for the removal of the Unity Clause, and here's a snippet from his submission yesterday.
With the greatest of respect, I'll also mention that I don't agree with the view tabled by members of the judiciary that the current legal order should not be disturbed whatsoever, for the reasons I've been talking about since I started here today. As a matter of fact, that view held, recently tabled, is just not good for any country, let alone Fiji. We must put forth our best endeavors to ensure that the judiciary complies with what is fair, what is just, as a principle of governance, as opposed to what is convenient legally. Otherwise, it takes away confidence in the judiciary as well. If you expect the common man, who has the ultimate responsibility of deciding who is going to govern through the ballot box, and that's everybody right down to that beggar that's lying on the pavement in front of BSP in Samambul every night. That tick determines who runs our lives for 4 years. If you expect everybody right down to that level, including me, coming out of maximum security prison after the time served for what's protected under here, to have confidence, then we need to fix this. And sometimes I illustrate this thing when we think of our own families, you know. I come from a family of 6. I'm number 2. And like any siblings within a family, we all watch each other and how we get treated by mom and dad. And we're very conscious if someone is allowed to do something that we know none of us are allowed to do. Why? Children understand this principle. And yet we are expected to go forward over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years as if nothing is wrong. The views presented by the commander of the RFMF is the starting point. That's exactly the place that where change will start. And I'm ready to support and to give my best efforts in making sure that we get this thing done, that we set a new foundation for our country going forward, and that we set a new document with respect to this one, that brings every single citizen under the law and equal.
And joining us now to talk more about this is MyTV's Ilaitia Ravuwai. Good morning, Lai.
Good morning, Jacquee. Good morning, Lusi. You both look wonderful this morning.
Yandravinaka Lai, and so do you. Well, big day for you yesterday. Just in the video that we just watched of George Speight, you were sitting there in the background. What was that like for you? Tell us a bit about that.
It was star-striking. I've never seen Mr. Speight ever in the whole time that I've been a journalist, because mostly the gentleman has always was incarcerated for about 24 years until about a year and a half ago.
And today is the last day live for consultations. Who does the Constitutional Review Commission have for today?
We've got a long list. We've got Fiji, Inia Serratu, FNU that's also presenting, Judge Fatiaki. I'm thinking this is the former Chief Justice, Daniel Fatiaki, the National Federation Party, and the Great Council of Chiefs. However, in the last hour, rather the last 5 minutes, the Leader of Opposition has cancelled. So he will not be making submissions before the Constitutional Officers Commission. Jacquee?
Lai, what else from yesterday? What else did George Speight have to say during his submission?
Interestingly, I went through the papers, and something that we missed was specifically Mr. Speight had asked that we abolish the office of the Prime Minister. Now, he has proposed that replacing the Prime Minister with an executive president as head of government. This is similar to how the United States conducts its affairs in the political arena. So that's something that he has, that he has proposed before the CRC, Constitutional Review Commission. Also, something that's of interest was also the removal and the review, rather the review and removal of the immunity provisions. This is Chapter 10 of the 2013 Constitution. He, rather like this last week, he said he had agreed with the Commander Arif Med for his stance on the matter. Now, last week, Kaloniwai had asked that that the CRC look specifically into the Chapter 10 of the Constitution, basically saying, rather calling for the removal of the immunity provisions in the Constitution. Something that he also talked about yesterday, Mr. Speight, was the greater recognition of Itoke interests. This is something that has always been a contentious issue when we talk about our livelihood, how things make our lives better. But he says this, when we talk about it in a public space or in a political space, this is always seen as a racist comment or racist, it's coming from a racist point of view. So he's asked that, in anything that we do, whether it's our Ngolingoli land, how to make Fijian or indigenous Fijians' lives better, he said not to look at it from a racist point of view. Jacquee?
Lai, how long does the Commission have to deliberate and present a final report to the Office of the President?
Well, today is the last day for consultations, where the list that I've just given you makes its final submissions and recommendations before the Commission goes into a break for about 6 weeks, deliberating, talking about all the submissions that it has gathered, and from its 12-week public consultations process. They've been to all over Fiji, Lau, Kandavumbenga, the Vanuatu, parts of Suva, parts of Lami, Navua, and the Western Division. Now, something that they will be talking about seriously is the immunity provisions. There has been mixed feelings about this. Certain groups have said not to remove the immunity clause, while others say call for the abolishment of Chapter 10 of the Constitution, basically the immunity provisions. But last week, something that the chairperson had said about the immunity provisions, they wanted to hear specifically from the RFMF on their stance on the immunity provisions. But now they've made it public, their stance. They are calling for the removal of the immunity provisions. Before they wrap up their work, this is the CRC, August 31st, to present their final report to the Office of the President.
So, like, the Social Democratic Liberal Party also made a submission. Are you able to share with us what were some of the recommendations?
Sure, Jackie. They've listed out a couple of things. They've asked that we restore the name Fijian specifically to indigenous Fijians, exclusively to indigenous Fijians, while other minority groups are known as Fiji Islander. This was a classification in the 1997 Constitution, where your nationality is a Fiji Islander. Also, they have asked the removal of constitutional immunity. This is not only for if you commit a crime of treason, but also for coups, torture, serious human rights abuse, serious corruption, and unlawful seizure of power. They've asked the CRC to look at this specifically. Also, they are calling for the strengthening of democracy and the rule of law. This is to reinforce the separation of powers. Also, they are asking, or they're recommending the CRC to that the Constitution should reflect the will of the people. And some of the stuff that SODELPA has presented is restoring democratic governance, protecting indigenous identity and institution, and safeguarding equal citizenship.
Yeah. So, we understand that the GCC is expected to make a second submission this afternoon. Do you know what is expected to come from the Mbosile Vakaturanga?
Well, it's a waiting game now. They are expected to appear at 3:30, but we know some of the things that the GCC had already mentioned. They had expressed their opinion that the 2013 Constitution, in its current form, is deficit. They've also called that the Constitution fully recognizes the Great Council of Chiefs. They are also asking for the recognition of the 1874 Deed of Cession. This is the constitutional as a foundation document of the Fijian state. This was something that they had already presented. We were lucky to get a copy of what they had presented because it was close to the media around about April when they did the submissions. So they were one of the first. I'm assuming right now that these are some of the things that they will come before the commission this afternoon to expound on.
Well, Thanks so much for that, Lai. Some great insight there of what's going on with our Constitution Review Commission. Thank you for joining us this morning. Lucy, lots to share, lots to talk about.
Oh my gosh.
It'll be really interesting to see what the GCC, in their submission this afternoon. Really interesting to see what they're going to do. But it's also been very interesting to see this process, how it's played out over the last 12 weeks.
Exactly.
What Fijians all over the country have been raising, what they brought forward to the table. And today's the final day.
And it's like, for me, Jacquee, it's the fact that they're making a second submission.
Yes.
Like, what is in that?
Exactly. Was there something they felt they missed out?
Yeah.
Did they see something from someone else who,
Exactly.
made a
Yes.
submission and decided, you know what? That's actually on point. Let's go back to the drawing
reinforce
board.
that.
Well, we'll head to a break now. But when we come back, we'll be joined in studio by community advocate Vani Qanaika. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching The Brunch right here on My TV, and I'm co-hosting this morning with our wonderful Lusi Banuve. And as mentioned earlier in studio, we have community advocate Vani Qanaika. Yandravinaka Vani, thank you so much for joining us this morning, for taking the time and agreeing to come on and speak with us.
You're welcome.
Vanu Buluvinaka Dolovina, you've worn many hats. You're a former teacher, and you also manage a cane farm in Ba. Talk to us a little about what this looks like for you, what it has been like for you.
Lucy, for me, being a teacher, when I was a teacher, these are two different things you're talking about. Being a teacher was to listen to students, was to encourage students, and believe there's always potential in every child that comes in the classroom. And for farming, it has taught me a little bit different, resiliency. I'm not actually, and it has a lot of physical work needs to be done, humanity, and the value of hard work. To be married. I got married into a cane farming family.
Okay. Yeah. What is the most rewarding part of farming, of being in this industry, especially in Ba? Ba is somewhere where this is this is known in Lambasa and Ba, but you live in Ba. What has been the most rewarding thing about farming, sugarcane farming for you?
Well, one of the things that keeps the farmers working and treasure the work that they do is that the future of their children, of their families, and also farming is one of our economy. It contributes to economy. That's something that keeps them working. There's something great about farming that you're not only doing it for your family, you're not only doing it for your community, you're doing it for the nation. It contributes to the economy of the nation.
Vani, looking at the current sugar industry challenges, I think that's something everyone has had their eyes on in the last week. We've seen a lot of frustration among cane farmers, including the recent confrontation with officials in Raki. From where you stand, managing a cane farm, being part of a cane farming community, what is the biggest worry do you feel that's keeping farmers awake at night right now?
One of the biggest worries that I feel that's keeping farmers awake at night, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. not knowing what the weather will be like tomorrow, not knowing the cost of the cost of the cane that they will get tomorrow. Worrying about the laborers, whether they will be able to afford laborers when cane cutting season opens. So those are some of the things that, or whether our next generation would, would stay on farming, or whether farming is still a sustainable, income for them. Those are some of the things that, we worry about. Because where we come from, most of our farming areas are flooding prone areas. So weather situation too, when they hear that cyclone coming, and I don't think farmers have really a good sleep, thinking about what if they just planted and how it will affect the farm. So those are some of the things. And the cost of living is one of the things that also, whether the money they get out of farming, the next 6 months of cane crushing season will be able to sustain the family. How would they be able to take their children to further education if they do not fall under that category of TELS?
You've something that you're passionate about is, advocating on behalf of the farmers, about how there seems to be just a generation now, the younger generation now, they're not interested in farming, therefore, the cane farms, the people who run it, the older generation, the worry is there that who's gonna, my children don't want to work on the farm. Who's going to carry this on? And then they face the issues of the tonnages, the per tonnage at the sugar mill. Would you like to just briefly talk about this?
Yes, if you happen to come to the Western Division, or where this cane farming, where crushing is happening or cane cutting is happening, when you enter the fields, you see elderly men, farmers, farm owners, elderly men, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, they're cutting cane because their children have opted to go to take another career. The cost of living that is that Fiji is going through now, and the cost of cane tonnage they're getting, it's not, the two are not adding up. So a lot of our young children opt to go for other white-collar jobs. I'm not saying that it's bad, but we have a lot of doctors, engineers, electricians in our farming areas. They're good. It's better work for them, bigger money. But the fear in us is that one day there'll come a time when, our future generation will not see that farming is something that they need to invest in. Farming is something that, it brings money to the economy, sugarcane. You go to the sugarcane areas, there are less sugarcane, but more vegetables, because vegetables is just, you take it to the market, you get cash. They're going into tobacco, they're going into planting suki. Those are some of the areas where we have, diverted to be able to sustain the family. But sugarcane industry, you see them fighting, you hear them. Government really need to sit with the farmers, and see the challenges, hear the grievances, and put all those together and see whether the package they're giving them is enough. It will be able to sustain them till the next crushing season. Because that's the only job they have. And we call that a job, farmers. That's the only thing they have. Otherwise, it's just they'll be at least leaving part of the land to plant vegetables, so that during, whether there's during off-cutting season, they can take it to the market to gain money from. So that's something that, that really needs to be addressed. We keep on, politicians talk to each other. People that do not actually experience the hardship on the ground, they really need to sit with farmers. Really need to sit with farmers. Not work for farmers, but sit and work with farmers in these areas, so they understand the challenges, understand the needs, see where they, where the grievances, the issues are coming from. Then they will be able to deal with the issues. Otherwise, we will just be talking at the national level. You won't be able to understand the real, the raw issues that's coming from them. That's something that really needs to be addressed.
Vani, you keep talking about, you've mentioned a few times now already, of government officials, that they need to work with the farmers, they need to speak with the farmers. Just out of curiosity, in your farming community, how often are you visited by government officials throughout the year, maybe in a month? Just to check in, maybe once a month of how's this going, how can things be improved? Maybe checking in with the, other farming communities. How often are you visited by government officials?
Well, to be very, very frank and honest here, not very often. If visitations were done, even local government officials, our agricultural officers, our sector officers, cane sector officers, if they happen to come and they see that there's a land that is vacant, once we planted cane, when the whole family went into cane planting, then a few weeks after, all our hills went down the drain because we got flooded and it was washed away. Till today, no one wants to do that again. We've gone into vegetable farming, and just a few. My sister-in-law, who is also a widow, has planted a few cane just to pay off the lease. We're talking about, okay, let's just plant cane just to pay the lease, because otherwise, during disaster, when we expect officers to come and assess our farms, assess our homes, assess the area, no, we haven't had our officers coming down, house to house. They wait for us to come to them and tell them about what's happening, what we are going through. They have never, an initiative, their initiative, on the ministerial initiative of the local government itself, just to come down, once in a while, every month. And then we will be, farmers will be, will know that, okay, somebody is, taking care of them, somebody is concerned. No, they are just left to do their own work. And to whenever they have grievances, issues they're facing, or there's a grant, they run. And we haven't had people coming down to the community saying, bring your birth certificate in the community. Bring a birth certificate, come with whatever, the requirements be. We are here at your police post or the nearest, or at your advisory councillor's place. This is the grant that we're giving up. No, we have to keep running. And sometimes, because of the connectivity, I'm not just talking about cane farmers, I'm talking about all farmers, for people from the highlands. So, some of them don't have connectivity. And at times, when they come down to town and then realize there is a grant, the grant is already closed a few days ago, 4 weeks ago. Because this information is very important. They need to bring the information to us.
So more communication, more connectivity, more work needed. Well, we're going to continue this discussion after this short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the brunch. I'm Jacquee Speight in studio with Lusi Banuve. And we are in studio this morning with community advocate and also a cane farm manager, and many other things. Vani Qanaika, and we're talking about issues that are affecting cane farming communities, as well as the work that she's been carrying out on the ground.
Vani, one of the things that you do is advocating for, for issues, advocating on behalf of communities on things that are happening in Bai, happening to them in Bai. They come to you and you're able to be the bridge between, sometimes the government and the community. And one of these has been the black sand mining. Particularly in, I believe, in Wotua and in the village of Natutu. Inba. For those who might not know what this looks like, what exactly has happened to these communities in regards to black sand mining?
Yeah, in regards to black sand mining, there's a mining company that's extracting in the outer shores. It's of Wotua, and that Golingoli belongs to the people of Wotua. But then within that premises, there is 3 villages where Wotua, Nawangarua, and Natutu. And with that coastal line, things that happen in that coastal line, it affects the 3 villages there. We've seen soil erosion. There's also some of the villages voicing out that they are not getting the yield or the catch that they used to get in that area. Now they have to also go further into the sea or elsewhere to be able to get the catch, because part of the catching area where they used to go in fishing, it's now owned by that mining company. Yeah? It's, they've actually paid for that lease. Yeah? They've leased it out for extraction. There's a lot of things that's happening in that, a lot of impact on marine life, and also the traditional fishing areas, as I mentioned, also has affected the soil. Just lately we went to Natutu village. We talked to one of our focal points, Natutu village. She mentioned that, we used to have a lot of hills, the bananas, even the vundi, we used to have big ones, and even the eggplants, big eggplants. The cassava, now we are getting very small hills, and the eggplants are like, they're shrinking or something. Probably that's because of the texture of the land, soil. The extraction must have, we are not experts in this. MRD really needs to come in to do monitoring on testing, research. A lot of research needs to be done, testing of the soils, whether it's really because of this is affecting them, and there's a lot of things that really needs to be done to be able to.
Have these issues been raised with the government of the day? Have these issues been taken to the ministries concerned?
Yes, on this, of course, is really one of the organizations that's advocating on black sand mining. We have officers that are also in charge of this project at Fiji Council of Social Services. We're working together with Jubilee Australia, who's also one of our supporters in these areas. We've brought in a lot of we've actually asked MRD to step in to do research, and research is not a one-off thing. Research, when you're coming to do research or testing or thing, it needs to happen every month to ensure the community that whatever you're facing is not because of this, probably it's something else. Let me ensure them, because whatever is happening to them now, the mindset of the people all goes to what's happening out there in the sea. So that's something that really needs to be done by government, is to ensure the people that whatever development is happening here, it will not affect any of your, your Ngoli or your coastal shores or your land when you are planting. This, as I mentioned before, and I'll say it again, information is crucial. Information is crucial. Consultation, really good consultation with the people is very important to ensure them that whatever development is happening, it's not going to affect your future generation. And we really need to tell. They really need to tell the people. People really need to make up their mind to see, okay, which one is more important, money or the damage is going to do to their livelihoods. So livelihood or the money they're going to get out of what this extraction company is going to give them. It's a long run, right? This extraction company might come today, and 10 years time they go back. But our future generation will continue, and the welfare and what happens in that village depends on the decision they make today. The right decision they make today is not going to affect their livelihood, not going to affect their beautiful coastal areas. The loss of mangroves in this area, there's about how many? More than 5 species of mangroves in Votua village. So these are the things that, one of the things that they treasure. Yeah.
So again, I asked with the cane farming, and now I'm asking, when was the last time you had someone from the Mineral Resources Department or from government visit to have a talk with the community about these issues that they're facing with regards to black sand mining?
I think the last time that they came was when they came to do consultation on the amendment of the of the mining bill. Yes. Well, that's the last time. I don't know whether in between that time till today, whether anybody else has come into the villages. I live on the other side, and the mining is on the other side.
But
the
you visit them quite often.
We do our one of the, as I mentioned, Fiji Council of Social Services. One of the things that they actually do consultation on with the Turani Koros and sees that these are some of the issues that are raised there from the women. As a convener too for Family Pacific, I'm a convener for Family Pacific. I look after Banuve and Rakiraki women. These are some of the issues that come from the women. Some of the issues that come from the women from these areas. Men talk about money all the time. Women talk about the health issues and food on the table and what's the next generation going to live on when they are gone. So these are some of the things that really it's affecting also the what you call when you extracting sand. It's also affecting those who, because most in these 3 villages, their livelihood, the women depend on going out to catch for freshwater mussels. Sometimes they have to dive deeper. Yes, they have to dive deeper now because of extraction. When you extract sand from, it's common sense. You extract sand from one end, the other sand that keeps going down.
Well, I do hope that whoever's watching this will visit your community very soon with regards to that.
That's right, Jacquee. Vani, you mentioned you're a widow, you're a former teacher, you're a mother, and also a grandmother. With all this, behind you, how do you handle on a personal level, how do you handle the advocacy work that you do with the responsibilities that you have?
One of the things that, for me, one of the hardest experiences in my life, I lost my husband. I lost my husband 3 years ago. That was, he was one of my strengths, anchor. when I was doing these advocacy programs. I do advocacy programs and I voluntary work, a lot of my volunteer work, even though I don't get in money, in the home, but he acknowledges. And one of the support systems that I have is the inspiration and the acknowledgement from my family, my community, my church families, my friends, close friends. They inspire me a lot, and one of the things to my faith, my faith that tells me that if you're not going to do it, who will do it?
You have these responsibilities, and but sometimes, do you feel like giving up? Like, I know you are the voice, for those who cannot speak up for themselves in situations like we've talked about earlier. But sometimes, does it feel like it's too much?
Yes. There are days when I feel very tired, when I'm tired and discouraged, when I feel that there's not a lot of support, and sometimes we feel that the government is not hearing us. But I thank all the supporters, the CSOs and those who fight for the same fights. Anyone working for change will experience the same thing. Anyone working for change. It's not an easy journey. But throwing down the towel is not an answer to that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Throwing down the towel is not the answer to that. Isavani, time has caught up with us. I'm so sorry, but we're so happy that you could join us this morning. Such powerful words of wisdom, and we thank you for the work that you're continuing to do in our communities. Stay with us. The brunch will be right back. Welcome back to the brunch on my TV, and now we're up for our next one, which is so exciting.
That's right.
Jamie's going to play out this video for us. We're highlighting a new content creator on the show today.
Hi friends, so I'm making dinner tonight. It is, say it with me, karambegani, my kid's favorite. So if you're old here, you know that I make this at least once or twice a week. That's why I hardly show it, because it's like repetition. Anyway, karambegani, eggplant, the garlic's done, onions done. I have to peel the potatoes and then do all that. And then that's it. Cook with me, guys. I've come back from town. I have some orders tomorrow. That's why I'm in this dress. If you know me, you know I will not wear a nice dress just to come on the video. I just came back from town. Anyway, cook with me, guys. Cook dinner with me. Hope you guys had a good week. Tomorrow is my son's cover barrel. I'm excited. Still haven't sold a lot. No, I've sold a lot. Yeah, and I've had like quite a few donations from my TikTok friends. So I'm very thankful for that. Thank you guys. I appreciate you all. And yeah, I feel like, I know it's going to be a good turnout. You know what? We're just going to speak positivity and life, because we know it's going to be good. We know we're going to raise a lot of funds. And I don't know. I know God is in control. That's what I know. Anyway, enough yada. Cook with me. Onions in.
Man, Lucy, for our viewers, in case you didn't know that TikTok video you just saw was cooking vlogger Mels Levula, whose amazing cooking videos have unintentionally marketed her cooking abilities to people looking for caterers.
And we're fortunate enough to have the amazing Mrs. Levula join us live from Nandi now. Bulavinaka, Mrs. Levula, and thank you for joining us on the brunch this morning.
Yandra Vinaka, Mels, how are you?
Yandra Vinaka, hi guys. Thank you for having me.
Mels, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your business, please?
My name is Mels Levula. I'm from Savu Savu. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have 4 kids here in Nandi, and I run a home-based cooking business here in Nandi. So I just started. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. It's just a small homemade. I make homemade food just for like people who love to eat homemade food.
Mel, what made you decide to start sharing TikTok videos, and how beneficial has it been for you?
So okay, two reasons. One was my mom passed away like a bit 10 years ago, and I found her Facebook page. So when I found it, I found pictures of her, and then I realized like I want my kids. I know it's morbid, but I wanted my kids to have like videos of me when I'm not here anymore. So that was reason one. Reason two was I had a baby and I stayed home and I wanted to help my husband with finances. So I started cooking and he started taking it to work to sell. And I wanted to make videos so I could push the cooking and not rely on my husband to take the food all every day to sell the food. So yeah, that's why I started. I wanted like that was my thought process. In the future, I'll be able to push my business online and be able to market my business. So yeah, that was the thought process behind starting TikTok.
And how beneficial has it been for you, Mel?
It's been really beneficial. Like it's pushed my business. Like I just started last year and posting and you know, social media is an amazing place if you use it wisely. And for me, just like posting my videos, being myself on these videos, people really resonated with it. And just like it helped my business. Like I get most of my orders from TikTok, from social media, from people overseas, from people coming to Fiji on holiday. So yeah, it's been really beneficial. Social media is an amazing tool just to market your business.
Well, Mel, what would be your advice to small business owners who have yet to start utilizing the platform?
For me, my advice, especially to stay-at-home moms, you have your God-given talent, use it. Like for me, I've worked so many jobs, but this is something that my husband encouraged me to do. He knows I love to cook. He knows I love to serve people, and he just, he told me, "You just stay home and cook the food. I'll take it." So for me, one advice I'd like to give, especially to moms, to stay-at-home moms, is to just be yourself. Post your videos. You can sew. If you can sew, you can cook. There's a lot of things that we can do. Just post your videos. Honestly, post your videos. That's my advice. Be yourself. Your biggest critic is you, and once you get over that hurdle, everything will be okay. Just use social media wisely. Market your videos, market your business, market yourself. And yeah, that's my advice to people with small businesses, especially for me. My heart is with stay-at-home moms.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so much, Mels, for taking the time to connect with us this morning, all the way from the
Thank
West.
you. Thank you
We
for
wish you all
having
the
me.
very best, and we're looking forward to your next video that might be coming up
Yes,
this
the next
afternoon or
couple
this
days.
evening. We'll be, hey, bestie, we'll be tuning in.
Yes, stay friends.
Thanks so much for that, Mels. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mels Levula, you can find her on TikTok. And it's just, another great reminder of
Exactly.
how social media can be used for good. For
She
such.
thought she was just putting something
Yeah,
out.
she thought she was just putting it up. And it's so relatable.
Yeah.
I love it. Now we cross to another amazing woman in Nandi. I love
It's
it.
definitely
We're
our
showcasing
women
all the
show.
women in the West. McDonald's Fijian Drua Women's manager, Eleina McDonald. Good
Hey,
morning.
Bula guys.
Elena, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you, lovely ladies, again.
Oh, it's wonderful to see you too. So tell us, Lena, how has the team prep been so far?
Oh, guys, it's been really good. It's match week next week, and we've had, since our last game playing in Brisbane and defeating the Reds, these last 2 weeks have been. We had a bye week last week for our women, which is very timely, coming off a good win, and then qualifying for the semi-finals. Um, that first week of being a bye has not been it's not really been a rest week. The girls have been going 110%. The coaches and team management have been pushing them. They had the lovely opportunity of taking 4 days off last week, which is so important for us and the players. It's important that they have rugby for training and that's their jobs on the day, but it's very important that they catch up with their families and friends, given a lot of the girls have had to move to Nandi to join the Drua facility and be a part of the camp for this campaign. Um, all in all, it's just 110% every single day that the girls are with us. They're so excited for next week. This week is actually a competition rest week, but it hasn't been a rest week for everyone. We've come back in full force. There's a lot of excitement. There's so much focus. The determination is there, and we're really excited to see that the girls, knowing that there's a semi-final coming up, there's great team camaraderie. We started off the week on a high. Girls have been cleared. We rewarded them with all this hard work for what is a very short but intense campaign and gave them an island trip on Tuesday in the afternoon. So that was also very good. They're currently coming back from the field. It's been full force, man. There's a lot of excitement.
Eleina, what are the girls expecting from the Queensland Reds next week in Lautoka?
Since we've seen how they came up in the competition, it's going to be intense. Since we've gotten back and we've had the rest week in that, we expect a very tenacious Queensland Reds team. We met them in the beginning of the campaign of our trial match where, although we had the upper hand, they're a team that's shown that they can catch up. We don't know until the last 80 minutes, and that's been what Super W has been about for all our teams coming up. We know what we are capable of, and that's really all we can focus on. What's been made very clear to the team is that when we're in this semi-final stage of the competition, it's a whole new ball game. So what we've done and what we've managed to achieve so far, it's a whole reset button for us. We know this is the competition for us to lose. We're very determined about wanting to win it and qualifying to the grand final and then hopefully taking on the next winner. Queensland Reds, we're very much aware of who their strong players are. There's a few players we didn't get to see in the campaign who are joining us in next week's game. We know, this is a team that's shown that they want to be up there. We never expected them to climb up the ladder that quickly. And we know they're going to come here with all guns blazing.
Thank you for that, Eleina. Would you like to just give us, the viewers a brief about tickets and how they can get it and how much are they?
Well, first of all, if you're not already following the Fijian Drua Facebook and social media pages, you need to get on them now. I find it very difficult that people aren't on it. But tickets, they're selling very cheap, everyone. And we're really trying to chase this campaign of filling out and selling out Lautoka. You've got tickets as low as $5 for the grass embankment, and for our stands, Waitui stands and southern stands are between $10 to $15. They're on sale at our Jack's outlets. You can buy them online through our Fijian Drua website when you get to Drua at flickit.co. If you're never sure, there's always a team that's working in the background that's pushing for sales. Our girls are on our social medias pushing for sales and getting everybody to support the team. So you can get tickets anywhere and everywhere. Biggest suggestion is to get it online because we're really trying to push that. And tickets are selling fast. We know the excitement's going to come and we don't want you to miss this opportunity. There's history to be made. So get every man and his dog coming for this game.
Man, thanks so much for that, Eleina. And we look forward to the game. And, this is a call out to anyone who's watching this. Get your family together, get the crew together, and get on down to Lautoka. Make sure you secure your tickets.
Right.
Let's get behind our girls. We do it for our men. Let's do it for the ladies.
Exactly,
Let's show up
Jacquee.
for them as well. It's so important.
Exactly.
Eleina, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Best of luck to you and the team, and have a great weekend ahead.
No worries.
And now a look at our poll question.
And our poll question is, should sugarcane farmers boycott or take their cane to the mill?
Let us know what you think by answering the poll question that is pinned at the top of the MyTV Facebook page.
And that's it from us today. I hope you've enjoyed the show.
Yes, thank you for joining us for the brunch. I'm Lusi Banuve.
And I'm Jacquee Speight. Have a great and blessed weekend. Stay safe, Fiji. Make wise choices. Practice safe sex. Don't drink and drive. Have a blessed weekend. We'll see you next week.
Good night.